Hello, 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 little dragons. How are you all doing? I'm so excited today because we have Fabien, who is a professional art photographer, and he's going to give us some amazing iPhone photography tips. I don't know about you, but I want to know how to create amazing photography for my Instagram. So we're going to invite him to join us and give us all of his best tips. He does workshops in this. He does this for a living. So I can't wait to see Fabien. I see you're in the chat. Let me know if you're able to request to join live. Meanwhile, let us know where you guys are tuning in from today. I'm live in Tel Aviv, and today it is super hot. It's like over 100 degrees, and I might have to go turn on my air conditioning in a second because I realized how hot it is. Let's see, Fabien. Oh, here you go. Okay, cool. London Fine Art Photographer. Here we go. So, wow, there's so many of you guys here today. This is really exciting. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. Drop it in the comments. Also, if you guys have any questions, you can click on the question mark sign on the bottom right. Hey!
Hey!
How are you?
Finally.
Wow. So we've been following each other for I don't know. It's so long. Maybe.
Yes. No, it's a few years now.
Yeah, at least a few years, if not 5 years. I feel like I've known about you and your amazing photography. So I'm really excited to have you join us to learn more a little bit about you and what you do, and then dive into a little bit of a Q&A session and see if we can get all your best iPhone photography tips. I can't believe it. We have over 100 people live with us right now because they all want to know what is the secret to good iPhone photography or photography, mobile photography for Instagram. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and say hi to all the little dragons.
So hi everyone. So my name is Fabien, and we've known each other for I think 5 years. The first time was in Milan for the DDD where you talked about 360 video, if I remember well.
Wow, that was 2017. Yeah.
And here in London now, I am a full-time photographer. I come from 25 plus years of design. So I've been a creative director, a web designer, brand designer, and this sort of stuff for more than 25 years. But the last time
You know what? I think let me check my internet. I'm gonna see if I think it might be my internet. And actually I have salmon cooking in the I have salmon cooking and I want to make sure it's not burnt. Okay. I'm on 4G, so usually sometimes this Wi-Fi is a little bit better.
see, any better?
Cool. All right, I can see you now.
Okay, good. I'm next to my router, so be better than this.
Yeah, everybody's on Instagram right now too, so it's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know where did you.
Oh, you're slowing down. All right. Let's see if we can get a better connection. Do you want to try? Okay. Okay. It just kind of has a little bit of a lag, so let's see if let's see how it goes, and then we can try and reconnect if it's better.
Yeah, up to you, really.
So you have like 20, you have like over 20 years of experience in like digital photography, content creation. So I want to, pick your brain a little bit about specifically about iPhone photography. What are like the 5 like biggest mistakes you see when people are taking photos with their iPhone?
Well, that really depends on the photos that they take. But I see mistakes that relate not just to iPhone photography, but to photography altogether. So the rules that apply to photography also apply to iPhone. It's the same thing. I mean, iPhone and Android, just smartphone photography as a whole. So one basic thing that it's in every single app and on the iPhone as well is the rule of thirds. So you can go into the settings on the iPhone. So you go to general, camera, and then settings, and you can set a grid. And that grid basically divides the screen in 9 parts, which are basically, there's 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. And the way this is divided in intersections, if you put your subject in the intersection, it's usually a sweet spot where you can generate some interest, which is much better than actually putting the person dead center or the subject dead center, because that's a very static image. So that would be the first thing. I mean, it's a rule that applies to photography. And it's actually, I don't know if you know that, but if you look on Google Trends, the rule of thirds, as of today, is still the most photo-related search term on Google.
Yeah, that was like one of the first things, because I've always wanted to like learn about photography and learn how to actually use a DSLR, and it's just actually really complicated. It's really, I mean, for me, maybe not for professional photographer like you. So that's why I lean towards like using my iPhone. Like anything I do, I can't even, like, even if you gave me the most expensive camera, like 8K, whatever, like I still would feel more comfortable, taking photos and video with my iPhone. But I have noticed, like, now I'm trying to start this new Instagram, like for fun, called @eatwithdot, and I'm trying to like do food photography. And it's, for me, I can see that my photography is, and my treatment is like not consistent, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't have like a beautiful consistent photography feed. How do you like achieve consistency in your photography, like for an Instagram feed?
Right.
And particularly for food photography, which is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that can be challenging. I mean, getting back to what you were saying about taking pictures with a camera rather than with the iPhone, it can be overwhelming because the DSLR has so many options. And it's the same thing if you use an app that actually allows you to shoot in RAW, because the stock camera app doesn't allow you on the iPhone. But you can download other apps that allow you to shoot in RAW, which would retain a lot more details, but then it can be overwhelming again for the settings, and then you have to edit your image. With if you take a picture with a stock camera, it can be, well, straight away usable. But yeah, how to achieve consistency? Takes some time, and the problem is that all the pictures, unless you take several pictures together, they're all going to be different because the light conditions will be different. In food photography, the lights in the restaurant will be different. The food is different, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, it's sweet, savory. So yes, it takes a bit of practice, of course. Now, for all of these options, there is sort of a general rule. So you always expose for the lights, for example. So you take the phone. I can use this one. And for example, whenever you take the phone, you can tap on the brightest part of the image that you're trying to take. That will extend the focus for the lights, for the specific ambient light. This way, you have a sort of consistency because you always, let's say, level the lights and the shadows in the picture. From there, it can be challenging again because if you expose for the lights, then all the shadows will be much darker. So ideally, again, iPhone, you can after you tapped on the bright spot, you can swipe up or down. to change the exposure. Now you see it straight away. If I swipe up, it's going to be
It's
bright,
brighter. Mm-hmm.
darker. That helps. You can also lock the exposure. So if you hard touch, keep pressing, then you lock the exposure, and whenever you move the phone, the exposure will be the same.
Oh, that's so good, because sometimes it's like always changing, and then you can't get things in focus.
Yeah.
So I need to remember that.
Every movement will trigger the camera, so it will change exposure again and focus again. Or you can take an external light with you. There are plenty of options. I'm getting darker. I don't know if it's my phone or if it's the lights around. There are several options. So from the cheapest ones, like this, which is like £5 on Amazon, it goes with the normal batteries, and it's an LED light. Or some fancy ones like this one, which is this tiny, and you can attach it to a power bank. So now these days, everyone has a power bank because, well, we always run out of battery with the iPhones. You can attach this one to a power bank, and it plugs the lights.
You know, I actually had one of these like LED lights. Oh my God, I can't believe you have like 5 of them, like right there. I had like one of them, and you know, I use it because sometimes I'm like having dinner and wanting to take a picture of my food at night. Yeah. So if I did have an LED light, I noticed that the light is very bright. Like it's too bright, it's too much, it's too fake.
Yes.
Right? How do you use the LED light to make it softer?
Yeah, well, most of these lights, even these cheap ones, they have a dimmer. So you can actually brighten this up or down depending on the condition. You could use the flash on the phone, but flash lights is really unflattering and unappealing. So I would never use that. That's why I have all these lights.
Yeah, because when I do use the flash on the phone, like you said, it's really a bad decision. It's always a bad decision when you use flash at night on the phone, especially for food photography. Maybe for people it's different, but because it makes like the shadow super hard. Right? It's like
and especially in food photography, if you have something shiny like cup, or even the fish or anything, if it's shiny, then it's going to reflect a lot more because that's a very harsh light. So yeah, you need something that has a dimmer. But like I said, the cheap ones has it, the LED light has it, and more expensive ones like this aperture light that I use in my YouTube videos as well.
Okay.
This is £100, so unless you do it professionally, don't buy it. But it changes colors as well, intensity, and you can change anything you want, and it comes with a diffuser as well.
So I think that's what I need, a diffuser, right? To keep the light like soft and not so hard, because I'm always like, you know, even if I had an LED light, I didn't know like where to put it, like what angle, like do I put the light on the top, on the side, like where do I put the light?
It depends on the subject. If you want to make the textures more prominent, like if some food has some bumpy texture or something like that, then you go from the side because you can make this look more 3D. If you want something more flattering, you go at 45 angle from the top.
45 degree angle from the top. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's mainly the main studio light. So I think for food photography as well.
Okay, good to know.
Otherwise, if you have something that's white or very light in your bag, you can use this to bounce the light.
Uh-huh.
So, like if you have a white bag, for example, because you're a woman, you might have bag.
I have a white iPhone.
But if you have the iPhone cover, if it's white, for example, you can take it off and then make the light bounce on the white surface. Not direct light, you make it bounce so it's more diffused.
Okay, so I would use like the LED light bouncing off the white.
Yeah.
To
or if
the
you
actual
white, then you can make it bounce.
So if I have to bounce a light, I'm already, my head's like, okay, that's too complicated. I might be able to hold the light at a 45 degree angle from the top down and shoot it. So the light has to be behind the camera or from the other side. Like if I'm holding my
Away.
If I'm holding my camera like here in front of me, should I put the light like there or like behind?
Well, again, that depends on what you're trying to photograph. I wouldn't put it in right in front of the camera because that's the same as flash. So it's too direct. I would
Okay.
always put it angled.
Okay. Got it.
When you're outdoors and it's daylight, the sun is up there somewhere. It's never in front of you, or almost never right on top of you. It's always angled somehow. So if you want to achieve something more natural, that's the way to go.
So after I get like the right shot and the right lighting, you know, and I also use the rule of thirds. Also, the rule of thirds is very subjective, right? Like what you said in the beginning, like I shouldn't put like my face right in the middle because it's kind of not best practice. Like it should be like off to the side like this. Or what should it be? Like, oh no.
Yeah, more like that. More, again, not that straight face, but maybe more like, you know, leaning on one side.
Like that. Okay, so after like we get the shot, what do you do in
I'm
post?
losing again. I'm losing.
Oh. Yeah, I see the endless circling on your face right now. I think what you could do is turn off Wi-Fi and just leave it on 4G.
Let me try. Well, actually, I think that
because sometimes the Wi-Fi it doesn't work, but the 4G works really well for streaming, in my experience. Let's see what you guys are commenting. Took her course. She's the best. Thank you so much. Oh, Joseph, my friend Joseph Sanfileo is in the house. He's asking what color, white or more golden type of light. He does like, my friend Joseph, he does like music videos, or he does live videos of him singing because he plays piano and he's a musician. And, you know, he wants to promote his music. So sometimes he might do it live and he might need to, you know, put a light at a 45-degree angle. Is that like the best way to do it if it's to your face?
Yeah, I would still put the light at 45 degrees angle. It depends also on the expression and the mood that you want to achieve, because you can like it's called the Rembrandt light, and when the light is right to you, pointing at you directly but from one side, so you are half in the light and half in the shadow. And if you move your head just, you can lighten up the eye here as well. And
that's so artistic.
That's a very moody light, but it's very effective, especially in portraits. Yes.
So have you done portrait photography with this type of light on iPhone? Wow.
Not with the iPhone. I've done it in studio with a camera.
Sure. But with iPhone, like on portrait mode, would you recommend like playing with the light as well? And
something like.
Okay. Right. Yeah, super moody.
Yeah, I have the other lights on, but you can see the effect on my face.
Yeah, so you could actually like turn off your lights and then only put like one light on the side of your face and use portrait mode and probably I'm going to try that later. My friend, so I'm using like this ring light that's right here, and there's like a filter so it kind of softens it, but he like recommended me because I guess last time the light was like too hard on my face. And so like he said to like make it softer. So this is like the soft mode. And then I can get it like super bright, but then I'm like, you can see how I'm like glaring, right? So you kind of like want to lower it so you don't glare. Anyways, you just need like just the light, like just the right amount. You don't need too much because you don't want to get like all the oil on your face to to shine, right? So tell me a little bit about what you were saying with like leveling the highlights and the
Yes.
shadows. Because I know like when I go into like when I want to edit a video or not a video on edit a photo just like directly on Instagram app, there's like shadows and highlights. And can you give me the basics on like what does that mean, leveling the levels?
Yeah, so if you post for the lights, or if you go in post-production afterwards and you have these highlights and shadows options, the main thing that people do is trying to get more out of the lights and the shadows out of the photo they took. So with the highlights, if you reduce the highlights, so if you slide to the left, then you're going to reduce the highlights. It means that it's going to get less bright, and you might get some of the details from the highlights back, because maybe it was too bright and it blew up all the lights, and it's going to be almost white. If you slide to the left, then you're going to get some more details from the highlights. And the same thing for the shadows, but the opposite side. So if you lift the shadows a little bit, you're going to take some of the details that are in the shadows that are maybe too black, and you're going to get them back. If you look at my Instagram, my street photography, for example, those are very black shadows. I'm not going to do that. I don't do that. I actually go for very dark shadows because that's the style I like.
Yeah. So it's really just a style, because like I play with it on like my food photography that I try to do, especially at night. I'm trying to like make them all look, my goal is consistency. So I have like a hard time getting the photos to all look alike. You know, even if I put like the highlights and the shadow at the same number, for example, I notice I have a hard time to make like all of my photos look.
The light conditions are different because you go to different restaurants, because the light in your house, if you're taking pictures of your own food, is going to be different every day.
So I need your help. I need a recommendation on how I can hack this consistency. Like, should I download some filters? Like, what do I need to do so that I can try to achieve like the most consistency as possible? Which I think what I want is like, you know, pretty white, like surrounding borders. And then like, I want the food to be like very colorful.
Yes. Well, so the idea there would be to actually get one of these lights with a dimmer, and then base the light condition of the environment around you, well, make it brighter or darker. And then after you've done this a few times, then you're gonna figure out by yourself when it's too dark, you're gonna brighten this up, and when it's too bright, then you're gonna darken it a little bit. It's all experience.
So everything is all about the light.
Yes, always. Photography is all about the light.
Yeah. So great. If you guys have any questions, I asked you like all the questions that I had, because I just want to know like what filter is recommended, or should I even like sometimes I don't even do a filter. I just play like with the different.
I don't use filters. When I shoot with a camera, I have my Fuji camera that already has a film simulation. But when I use the iPhone, I just do editing, well, picture by picture. Every picture is different. So I change my editing based on the picture that I have in front of me. But it's all my way of editing. I would say I take different areas of the photo and then tweak that specific area, rather than doing something to the whole picture at once. So if I want to lift the shadows, I target the shadows with Snapseed, with Lightroom. You can do that pretty easily. And then I lift the shadows, for example. I want to make one color pop, then I target that specific color and make that color pop, rather than changing the saturation or the brightness of the whole picture.
That's a good idea. I always do like a little bit more saturation, and I change the whole thing. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, because that's the whole picture. Maybe you want to retain some brightness in the sky, but if you change the brightness of the whole picture because you want to lift the shadows, then you're going to brighten up the sky as well, which may turn white, which may turn unappealing. So it's all about this localized editing.
Localized editing. And what app do you use for that localized editing?
Mostly Snapseed and Lightroom. I use Lightroom a lot.
I would love to do a Snapseed iPhone tutorial another time, because there's so many options. That's what confuses me. There's too many buttons, and I'm like, I don't know how to use all of them. So
I'm
new thing.
session like that, but we can't do it on Instagram because I can't share my screen on Instagram.
Yeah, we can do it on Facebook.
Yeah.
So new thing is asking, what is a HDR on iPhone camera settings?
Okay, so HDR, which stands for high dynamic range. It's kind of the same concept we discussed earlier about lifting the shadows and getting some details back from the lights. Because what HDR does in the bare bones of the HDR is actually the iPhone or any camera that does HDR takes 3 photos at very rapid succession and then blends them together. So it takes 1 photo at a normal exposure, one that is underexposed and one that is overexposed, and then blends them together to get the best of the 3 pictures. If you do it in cameras, you can take even more pictures. If you do it manually, for example, you can take 7 pictures, 9 pictures, 13 pictures, depending on how contrasted is the scene and how dynamic is the range color of the brightness and shadows of the scene. But in another, 3 pictures, overexposed, underexposed, and normal, and then blend them together.
Okay, so the Apple iPhone takes HDR photos like, as a setting, and that combines 3 photos together. But you just said that you can put 16 photos together.
Yes, you can. The iPhone. I think maybe the iPhone does it for you as well. I know the basics is 3 pictures, but because everything is done behind in the background, you don't really see what the iPhone. It may be even taking 13 pictures. I honestly don't know. Normally it's 3. And in the first versions of HDR for the this was so slow that if you were taking pictures of somebody moving, for example, you would see the ghost of the person moving along the street.
Yeah.
But now, because the processor in the iPhone is so snappy, then it takes all these photos in milliseconds and you don't even see them.
Amazing. So do you recommend always keeping it in HDR mode so that you can have, is that almost like a RAW mode so that you can have more adjustments?
Yeah, well, if you don't have lights with you, if you don't have anything to adjust the picture you're taking, then HDR could be a good option. It's better for landscape and cityscape than it is for people, for example, for portraits. It's good. It may be good for food photography, actually. I haven't tried HDR with food photography.
I haven't either. I always don't put it on because I'm like, oh, I don't want to waste more memory. And like the live, like iPhone has a live photo mode. I'm like, oh, I have to turn live and HDR off because I'm like, oh, I don't want to take, even though I have like the biggest iPhone, like I have like, I don't know, the biggest memory. And I probably have plenty, but I'm always like really stingy when it comes to like iPhone memory and like, because I take so many photos. I might take like 10 photos of like one thing. Same thing, Judith. Judith says the same thing. She's like, I'm usually taking 20 pics of one thing. Me too. And so that's why I don't put HDR or live mode on. But I realize it is so useful because with live mode, you can do like the little GIFs and, the loops, which has been really cool.
The iPhone 11 now, you have an option in the settings which is called Smart HDR, and it doesn't take more pictures. It only takes 1, because before you had the HDR photo together with the and it would keep both of them in the phone. So yes, you would run out of memory pretty soon because you take every time 2 pictures. But now with the Smart HDR, it's only 1 photo.
I'll have to try that option. Here's a great question. Moja Organic says, do you have any tips about skincare products photography? So skincare products photography, I guess that's basically product photography. It might involve skin. It might involve like product on skin, or just the bottles. Let us know. Moja, if you're here, let us know.
It's only the product. I think the main thing is you need to take more than one picture, because most of these products, they have a shiny surface or even some glitter, which may be way too shiny in one picture, and so you may want to retake that one. So my recommendation for this sort of pictures, if it's a product, and then I'll talk, if it's a product, would be to use a tripod. Even if it's an iPhone, just use a tripod. You can get small ones. You don't have to take one of these big tripods that us photographers carry along and break our backs with. You can take just a small one, or I don't know if I have. Yes, hold on.
You have everything. He's like Mary Poppins and has like all his camera equipment.
I was almost prepared with a few things. So yes, this thing here, look how tiny this is. This is like a credit card size, and it's called pocket tripod. And you just flip it like this, and with 2 movements.
Oh wow!
And so you put the phone on it, and that's your tripod.
That's awesome.
So
that's like fits in your credit card holder.
You can just use this. You take several pictures, and then you blend them together. You take the best parts of all of them. It's like HDR, but you have to do it manually. So you take one photo which has a shiny surface, if you want to take that shiny surface, or different pictures together, and you get the lights from different angles, and you blend them together. That's how you create a good product photography, even with the iPhone.
So you can, have you done this just on using only iPhone? That's amazing. So your recommendation is, if you have to do any product photography, like the way to get like really crisp photos with iPhone is basically to take like 10 of the same picture with lighting, like with the light in different areas, and then blend it together. What app do you use to blend it together?
Well, now Photoshop, because now Photoshop is available not on the iPhone, but on the iPad.
So you can actually put all of your iPhone photos onto your iPad and then make them all, what kind of layers? You make it, what do you do?
You make layers and then you create masks just to hide or show the elements that you want to hide or show from the different pictures. And it's the same for other products where, for example, you want to see some shine. So you take the picture, let's say, a coffee machine, for example. So you take a picture of a coffee machine, and then you want to make the surface shine on just some specific angles or corners or different places, or like the coffee blender maybe. And so you take the first picture, and then you move the lights around, making the different elements shine, and then you blend the pictures together. And you can do it with the iPhone.
Wow. I would just like, I never knew that. I would be so confused as to like all the 10, like if I had 10 layers, like which layer I need to like mask and remove. And it sounds like
it just takes a little bit of practice, and it's all common sense in the end. You want to remove distractions. That's the main thing. And then
so you remove the ones that are, you erase like the ones that are bad, right? That are blurry. Yes. And you leave just the clear.
Yes. You take one picture as a base, the one that has the most elements that you like, and then you blend the others together.
Okay, amazing. That's such a great tip. I'm going to totally try that. That's seriously awesome. Moha, let me know if you got that. So another great question is how to create beautiful flat lay photos with iPhone. As we know, this is like the most popular type of content that's popping on Instagram, and everyone loves a good flat lay. So I have tried to do this myself very unsuccessfully. So I'd love to hear how you would approach doing a flat lay design and all of that.
Yeah, again, it's all about the light. It's all about how you make every element shine. Really, I use this word so many times, but it's the thing with light. It's how you make these things pop. And depending on the mood that you want to create, you want to change the light, and you may want to change the position of the light. Most of the times, I would use more than one light for flat lays, because you want one that you can almost get from above the objects right next to you when you take the pictures, because you want to show the surface of the element, the details of everything that's in front of you. And maybe one that's almost on one side, so you can create some shadows as well, so you can make these different objects stand out.
So
Flatlays, I mean, it's really depending on the moods that you want to create. Like every other thing, if you want to do something more adventurous, I would say that more than how to take the picture itself is how you combine elements to create some interest. So if you create some flatlays of, I don't know, everyday carry, then you want to put keys in there, you want to put some other everyday objects next to it to create some interest. If you do something for travel or adventure, then you may want to put something, lay down a map, for example, and then all the objects next to the map. It's how you create interest around the objects that you are photographing more than how you take the flatlays itself.
yeah, I totally agree, because I think the mistake that I made with, you know, when I tried to do flat lay photography on my own, and I'm like, I just need to hire a professional photographer, a professional flat lay photographer, because the design of the lay, like the actual like setup is really important, because it's not just about the photography there, it's about the design and how you like actually lay out the items, and like if you want to put, you know, other design elements in there. So it's a lot about the art direction. So you need to like have really good art direction to, you know, make the flat lay look amazing, and then you need amazing light.
And style change as well. Now, going back to food photography, because it's something that interests me. I was the first Italian male food blogger in 2006. And so I would take a lot of pictures of the food that I was cooking and I was preparing. And I saw the style changing over the years. So when I started, it was mostly about taking a good photo of the dish, of the meal or whatever, whether a macro shot or something from a food, or maybe you make one ingredient really short. And then over the years, I started seeing people putting more props next to the dish. And now, modern food photography is all about everything that you put around the table. Sometimes it's a flat lay, for example, and then you put ingredients, you put flowers, you put everything on a wood plank. So it's all about making the picture more interesting to the viewer.
Yeah, I definitely agree how it's the food photography now is also a flat lay, especially like if you get into, you know, cooking and creating like, you know, ingredients and like all the Pinterest, like all the different Pinterest type of flat lays where it says like all the ingredients of how you make this pasta or whatever. And the thing is, how high do you have to like stand up above the actual food? Like the higher you go up, the wider you can.
Yeah, I suppose there's no rule, because it depends on what you want to highlight in the picture that you are taking. So if you want to have ingredient, then maybe you go wide, because you put the dish somewhere in the rule of thirds in one of the intersections, and then you put the raw ingredient and then maybe anything that comes with the ingredient together with the dish, so that the ingredient is the real subject. It's not the dish, it's not what you are prepared, but it's everything. It's the story that you create around the dish.
Yeah, so I mean, when I'm doing food photography, I'm literally like, it's impromptu, it's in a restaurant, so I don't want to get that much attention. I mean, like, oh, this crazy girl is doing a flat lay in the middle of the restaurant. So that's why my food photography, the angle is always just like from my seat, right? Because if I go like up like this, like people are like, this girl's like, you know, nuts, which I know professionals do that. So like you have, like they do everything to get the right angle. So
now, one thing I would recommend is that you ask to get a table next to the window. And if it's night, you won't have enough light, but if it's daytime, then you will have a lot of natural light, which will really help your photography. And I would also experiment with different layers. So instead of doing a flat lay, maybe you put a glass in front of you and you take a picture like if it's a candid shot, right? You are hidden behind the glass, and then you take the picture of the meal. it's just, again, it's about creating a story around what you're having.
So this is the exact, Soy Mala Subordinada had the same question. It's like, what is the perfect distance so that the flat lay is like the perfect distance? So there's
How many
no,
items you have to take in the picture? If you have plenty of objects, then you're going to go wider because you have to put more of them in one photo. If you have less of them, you can go closer.
but
If you have more elements to put in the picture, then you go wider.
but like if you're with your iPhone, if you're using just your iPhone, there's like a point where stuff just gets blurry, right? Like stuff will just get blurry if you're like 6 feet away. You probably want to be, you know, standing up. I think like if you stand up from your table, like you can still like focus in on that. That's what my recommendation would be, but I don't know. Do you have a recommendation?
No, I agree.
Like you're
No,
actually a real food
standing up.
photographer, so but you're like a professional, so you would go to the extreme. But if you didn't want to, if you wanted to be casual about it,
Yeah, I would. One thing is that I don't really take pictures in restaurants, and one thing
oh,
that I'm not a little bit when the people in the table next to me, they use the. So I'm sitting next to
yeah,
them and they use the flash and that's really. But I
yeah.
would stand up.
I'll promise when we eat
I would
together, I'll
stand up
never
and take
use
the.
the flash. I won't use the flash when I sit next to you
I
and embarrass you.
next towards the next table.
But if we actually share a meal together, I'll just have you take the photo anyway. So I'll just like, hey, can you take a picture of my food for me? Okay, so here.
Up is fine. Now you have different lenses as well, so you can stay sat and then use the wide angle lens rather than standing up.
That's true. So yeah, using the wide angle lens instead of standing up, that's a good idea. So Rinja Bagadia says, how does using grids help? So we talked about this in the beginning, like the rule of thirds. Like, what am I supposed to focus on while using the grid?
So you can use the grid in different ways. You can use it if you don't want to follow the rule of thirds. You can still use the grid to make sure that everything is well aligned. So, for example, that if you take architecture, that the buildings are straight, use that, for example, or you can use it to see that the horizon is level, so you don't have a wonky picture.
Yeah.
So that's a way of using the grid without following the rule of thirds. Otherwise, in the rule of thirds, you have these two vertical lines and two horizontal lines, and they intersect in 4 very specific points. And those points are those where you should, according to the rule, put your subject on. So you can use either of those 4 angles or the 4 intersections, sorry, depending on what you're shooting, depending on where the movement is going, where the action is going. But you use one of these 4 intersections to put your subject. It can be the eye of the person that you're shooting, or it can be the subject that is moving, and you put the subject in one of these 4 intersections.
Yeah. So basically, where the grid intersects, that's where you should put like where you want the focus to be. So that
Yes.
should be where the product is, where the face is, like the main thing you want to highlight. Okay, I just learned that.
Point of
So New Thing asks again, how to take long exposure for people?
Okay. So the question is, do you want the people still in a long exposure photo, or do you want the people to disappear, or do you want to see the movement of people in a long exposure? Because these are the 3 pretty different pictures that you can take.
So let's first explain what long exposure means for people like me that I think it has something to do with the light, but what does that actually mean in terms of like my iPhone?
So long exposure is, and I don't know if there's actually a definition in seconds, is what a long exposure is, but long exposure is anything that takes seconds to achieve. And this is doable with the iPhone as well now. You can do it with a live photo. So
Okay.
if you take a live,
so he just said, new thing says it's for movement of people. So how to take a long exposure for movement of people to show them that they're moving, like, I guess, like, so you see that blurriness that they're traveling.
yes. Okay, so now the iPhone is well stabilized, but otherwise I would say use a tripod to start, because anything that relates with movement, you may want to have the iPhone or the camera as still as possible, because otherwise you may introduce shakiness. But the way you do it with the iPhone is that you take a live photo. So you enable the live photo with this, when this symbol, and then when you take it, now I'm going to take just one for the sake of it. And then you go into photos and you have the live. Oh, I took a video. Obviously, never do this live because it never works. So you take a live photo, right? Okay, live photo, done. Okay, fine. Then you go into photos. You open the photos that you just took, and then you swipe up, and you have different options. You go to the last one is long exposure. So you click that, and it will create a long exposure out of the picture that you took.
Oh, wow.
Now, and if you have people moving, then these people will be like flowing in the photo.
Yeah, that's what he's asking. New thing. Let us know if he answered your question. Because I think that's what he wanted to know. That's so cool. I did not know that you can take a live photo, and then after you take it, you swipe up, and then there's actually a long exposure option. Okay, so you can even set the amount of time.
No, that's saying you can't set the amount of time.
Oh, you can't. Okay.
No, but there is an app, I think it's free, which is called Spectre. It's this one here.
Okay, Spectra.
Yeah, which allows to change the time. And they have three set times, so 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and hold on, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, and 9 seconds, something like that. Or other apps. Which one is the other one? I think there's another one that I can't remember the name, but it takes.
Oh, okay. I think you froze a little bit. Okay, we have time for one last question. Sama.freckles. We have time for one last question. Sama.freckles asks, what do you think about the use of light ring to take product photos?
Funny. It's the second time someone mentions light ring to me today.
I have a light ring here.
You,
and then if you have any tips for jewelry, for jewelry photography?
Right. I actually like the effect of the light rings on your eye, because you can get this nice circle, light circle in your eye. And if you take product photography, if you take pictures of product that are small enough to actually be surrounded the ring, then it's perfect, because you get a very even light throughout everywhere, all around the object. But for anything that is larger than the ring, then I would probably use a different light, something that's more professional or larger, with a diffuser. Diffuses the light throughout the whole environment, or the whole room, more than a ring.
Great, Sama. I hope that helps Sama Freckles. And then the last question is if you have tips for jewelry photography, like how to do jewelry product photography. And that, jewelry, it reflects. So I assume, I don't know if there's any tricks with that.
We discussed earlier. I mean, with the iPhone, it's going to be tricky, because you have, unless you want to blend more than one picture together, because of the shiny surface and because of all. I think you need to use. I think you need to use an external light that is angled in a way that creates the least amount of reflections, and then take the picture with the iPhone.
Yeah, I think jewelry is like super difficult because it reflects so much.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
And also, I've done that professionally, not with an iPhone. So I've taken
of
jewelry pictures.
course,
Of
of
course.
course.
But I was doing some focus stacking. So I was taking macro photos and then moving the camera just like 1 millimeter at a time, and take multiple shots and then blend them together to have everything in focus, even though it was very shallow.
Yeah, so again, with basically blending different layers of the same photo together and bringing out the best parts on Photoshop on your iPad. I have to try it because I'm totally anti-laptop. Like I'm trying to like never work on my laptop again. I have everything in Notion, everything on my iPad, everything on mobile, everything on iPhone because I just like that's the only technology that I ever want to use. So I just want to thank you so much for I just want to thank you so much for spending the time with us. And do you want to tell us a little bit about, I know you give like workshops about, iPhone photography, and you were in Tel Aviv and you were going to do a workshop. Can you tell us a little bit about like what you teach and where people can contact you?
Yeah, well, I have different workshops. So depending on the place where I am, I do different workshops. So now in London, I do street photography and architecture cityscape workshops. And I just launched a new one for the people that say they don't have time for photography. So I do a one-to-one lunch break or pre-dinner. So it's a very fast-paced, pretty intense 1 or 2 hour mini workshop. And that's just launched. So if you're in London and want to do that, yeah, just reach out
That's
to me.
amazing. I definitely want to do that. I can't wait till I can travel to London and we
Yeah.
can hang out and I can take your workshop because you definitely have a lot of knowledge and I learned so much. I know all of the little dragons also learned a bunch from this live. They're asking me to keep it up, keep it posted. So if anybody needs more iPhone tips, where can they follow you?
They can come to Fabien B on my Instagram. They can come on YouTube, my new channel, Fabien Butazzi, or the website, which is fabienb.blog. That's where I put all my old information. But don't come here to London. This is horrible here. Let me come to Tel Aviv.
Yes. Well, you're always welcome here. The thing is, right now, they're only letting, because of the situation, they're only letting Israeli citizens in. So I can't even leave the country. If I leave the country, I can't get back in. So.
And I can't go anywhere because of
I,
the situation in UK. The other countries are not allowing anybody from the UK to travel. You have to quarantine for 14 days anywhere you go.
yeah, it's crazy. So I just I can't wait till this is over and we can travel and hang out and take photos and
I want to, and Jerusalem. There's such
yes.
an amazing
When
life
you
in
come here, when you come here, I'm personally going to take you to Jerusalem and I'll take you to all the spots. So let's definitely hang out when you're here. But hey, thank you so much for taking the time and have a wonderful rest of your week.
You too, and
And
thanks.
thank you so much, you guys. We'll tune in next week on Social Media Mondays, everyone. Bye. Bye, Fabien. Bye, everyone.
Bye.